Well, hello there, my friends. It is your friendly neighborhood Pastor Daryl coming to you from Park Church with our next installment of the Ask the Pastor series. This has been so much fun for me, and I thank you so much for sending in your questions. We got a few new questions this week that we've added to the basket. So if you have a question, I'm telling you, if you've got a question about the Bible, about church history, about Park Church, about theology, about world events, or again, if you have a non-invasive personal question, send it in to office@parkchurchgr.org. We'll add it to our basket of questions. We'll draw the questions out, and we'll continue to answer them. As many questions as you have, we will answer them here at the Ask the Pastor series at Park Church. But we are going to get started with our question and draw our question for this week. So our question this week is... All right, so I guess the easy ones about what are my favorite comfort foods are over, because the question this week is, can you give a summary of your theological outlook and how do you apply it to your faith and life? So, how do I have a theological summary or an outlook, and how do I apply it to my faith and my life? All right, so if I was going to give an overview of my theology, it is this, and it is biblical, and it comes from the book, or the letter of the epistle of John, the first epistle of John. And it says this, that God is love, and whoever loves is a child of God. But I want to be really clear about this. So if God is love, that means that love is God. But it's a very specific type of love. If you go and look at the Greek version of the Bible, the original translation, which the author of 1 John wrote in, it's not eros, which is like romantic, passionate love. It's not philo, which is kind of like love of knowledge or something. It's not even familial love. The word there is agape. So God is agape, and then you can always inverse it. Then that means agape is God. And what agape is, my friends, is that unconditional, steadfast, deep love that is unshakable, unmovable. It never is removed. If you want to talk about God as omnipotent and omniscient and everlasting and eternal, that is the easiest way for me to think of that, is love, that love never ends. Actually, the Apostle Paul says that in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, that the love hymn, that love never ends, that there's nothing that can stop love. But it's not just, like I said, it's not just a feeling or an emotion, it's agape love, which is so robust, and it's so hard for me to even think about. But that's my personal theology, that God is love. And then I think about what Christ says to the disciples when he washes their feet on what we celebrate as Maundy Thursday. He says, unless you agape each other, no one will know that you're followers. They will only know you are my followers if you agape them, that we live into that sort of love ethic. And then you think about what Jesus then says, all the law, all the Torah is summed up in two commandments, which is we ought to agape God with all of our heart, mind, and strength, and we ought to agape our neighbor as we agape ourselves. And so this love ethic sort of permeates all of that. And then going back to Paul at his love hymn in the first Corinthians 13, he actually then tells us what agape is pragmatically. Agape is patient, agape is kind, agape hopes in all things, endures all things. Love, that agape never ends. Agape doesn't boast in itself. It doesn't insist on its own ways. And so Paul gives us very pragmatic ways to apply agape to our lives. So hopefully I'm giving you an overview here. Then I use the agape rubric almost as a lens to read Scripture. So as I'm reading Scripture, if something doesn't fit within that sort of agape rubric, then I can read that Scripture as, well, that's historically fascinating, that's biologically interesting, that is that gives me a good insight into what the author of that particular book was thinking. But if it doesn't fit agape, then I can look at it as like, oh, that's cool that it's in the Bible, but I don't have to apply it to my life, you know? And so that I call that the agape or the Jesus lens of reading Scripture. When Jesus quoted Scripture, you know, he didn't quote some of the crazy stories from the book of Judges, you know, those violent war stories. He quoted Isaiah, and he quoted Leviticus, love God with all your heart, mind, and strength. He really did apply that sort of like agape rubric to his own understanding of Scripture and to his own life. So hopefully that to sum up, let me do it again. God is love. God is agape. Agape is God, and then we can then live out that agape-ness in our relationships with each other and the way that we love God, that we love each other as we love ourselves. So if you were going to ask me what is the summation of my theological outlook, it's agape. And then those are the ways that I try to apply it to both my life and my faith. I hope that's has answered your question. Thank you so much for sending it in. If you have another one and you'd like me to ponder and give an answer to a question, please don't hesitate to send it in. But my friends, until we see each other again, may God bless you. May God keep you. Godspeed. Bye-bye.